And welcome to Couched in Color with Dr. Alfiee, the show where we discuss all things mental health for teens, youth, young adults, families, and communities, and where we always spread love and light informed by good, culturally relevant science. I'm your host, Dr. Alfiee. Today, we're going to stick with this theme of security, and we're going to take a slightly different take and learn a little bit about both the personal and professional side of a young person. This young woman is named Ms. Jessica Orenstein, and Jessica has a fascinating background being a young African-American woman who grew up in environments where often she was the only person of color, the only African-American. This is through high school as well as in college. And I'm really looking forward to having her share with us some of her insights and teaching us about a couple things that really stand out to me as important. One is this idea of something called racial socialization, which she will explain and teach us a little bit about. Another is this idea of developing resilience. How does that happen? Where does that come from? How does it show up? And how do we employ it in our daily lives as young people? Finally, Jessica will talk about something that's very important to her, and that's grit. She speaks to grit from the perspective of someone who works in different kinds of environments with different kinds of young people from across the socioeconomic spectrum. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing with you the insights that she has about how our young people develop grit, how she herself developed grit, and what we can do to help cultivate that kind of resilience in our young people. So stay tuned. You're going to really enjoy this episode. Thank you for being here with us today, Jessica Orenstein.
Thanks for having me.
It is, we met a couple, maybe last year, through a mutual friend whom we both, I have a lot of admiration for this woman. Everybody loves Ada.
Mm-hmm.
We both have a passion for young people. And in particular, young people of color.
Yes.
So for my audience, I'll say for, just a little bit of background, I know you know some of this, that our podcast is really about young people of color in particular, but we're passionate about all young people. But I think because so often young people of color and their mental health needs in particular are not necessarily at the forefront of, conversations, I really wanted to have a space where I could have those kinds of conversations, to help the teenagers and young people themselves, the adults in these young people's lives, whether it's parents or guardians or, people who, foster parents or teachers or mentors or whomever. I wanted to have a space where we could really talk about the kinds of issues that are of import for that population. Mm-hmm. So with all of that said, I would love it if you would share a little bit about yourself, your background, and your passion for young people of color in particular.
Well, I identify as a Black woman. A Black American woman at that. I'm originally from a small town in Illinois called Belleville, Illinois. When people ask me where I'm from, I just say St. Louis because no one knows where Belleville is. So, but a lot of people are familiar with St. Louis because of Michael Brown, the Ferguson area is in that St. Louis area, the St. Louis metropolitan area. And I grew up in a very tight-knit family, we all just, those summers in Mississippi, all the cousins went down kind of family, right? So grew up in that kind of environment, very caring, very loving. I ended up going to get my master's in public health in St. Louis, Missouri, St. Louis University. And my focus was on behavioral science and health education. I knew that I didn't necessarily want to work on an individual level with people, but I wanted to change systems publicly. So that's how I got into working in public health as a public health practitioner. And recently, I've gotten into mental health. I've always been a mental health advocate, a mental health enthusiast. However, I was not working directly in the field. But as a woman of color, as a Black woman, I've always found myself in these spaces where I was working with youth and they were coming to me often about their mental health concerns and their mental health needs and struggling having those conversations, struggling to identify what was going on with them because it was a conversation that they hadn't had before with anyone. So in addition to that, my sister passed away 4 years ago now, as of February. She was 24. And she really struggled being a biracial young woman and figuring out her identity And did she fit in more here? Did she fit in more over here? She had so many different populations and different cultures that she identified with, but it just never seemed that she was welcomed fully. This is by her own words, not mine that I'm placing onto her, but things that she's told me. So she actually died in a car accident. She had in the past, though, dealt with a lot of different bouts of depression and anxiety, and she had several suicide attempts, and she really went through it. But yeah, I do a lot of this for her.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That is deeply personal, and you know, I know that my audience will appreciate hearing from a Black woman in particular. That these are issues that they don't really know any color. You know, they don't know any ethnicity. They don't know, you know, mental health concerns impact all of us.
Right.
And I know from talking to you that, as you shared, you have a real passion for mental health advocacy, particularly in young people and in young people of color specifically. So I would really love to hear a little bit about your journey to finding yourself in a place now where that's your work, that your work is centered in youth mental health advocacy. If you could elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so I've always felt that I've been an emotionally intelligent person since I was young. And it's hard to describe, but when you're young and you find yourself noticing things at age 5 that people at age 12 didn't notice, you know, that people around you, even adults around you didn't notice. You spend a lot of alone time figuring those things out, just thinking to yourself, what is going on with me? So from a very young age, I learned how to navigate my emotions, whether that be with the help of other people around me or on my own. So I always knew about emotional wellness and emotional health. I didn't really know about mental health. I did, but that word wasn't something that was in my language. That wasn't in my conversations from day to day. So growing up, I always found myself very empathetic to the struggles of other people and challenges that they were going through, even like some of the happy moments that other people were going through. So I've always felt connected to people in a very deep way. So with that, I've always kind of gone and been attracted to whether it could be a project or events or just different things in life. I've always been attracted to whatever brought me to people. Working on my own was never a thing, even though I spent a lot of time on my own and being introspective. I really took pleasure in being around people and learning about humans. And so I just grew from there. Everything that I did was devoted to getting to know who we are as people and finding these commonalities in others. But one thing I've always noticed was that I was often an other.
Okay.
I grew up in predominantly white institutions from the time I was in kindergarten through graduate school. In undergrad, I was one of 2 in my major. So I've always felt that there was something extra that I've had to do to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And that does take an emotional toll on you. It does take a mental toll on your health and your wellness. And I was about to drop out. I was not emotionally ready to be in college. Oddly enough, it was because I was comfortable with the systems that I had built in my hometown. And then when I went away, I was very uncomfortable. And I wasn't even that far away. I was like 45 minutes away. And I had a car and I would go home every weekend. And this presented a big problem because I was never forced to get to know my surroundings. But I remember this orientation program in my school. There was no one in it that looked like me. And I didn't have anyone to bring me out of my room to go to these first year student events or anything like that. So I just stayed in my room, went home on the weekends. One day my mother took my car. I thought my car got stolen. I called her. I was like, Ma, you're not gonna believe it, my car got stolen. She was like, girl, I didn't steal your, no one stole your car, I took it. And that's the moment that I stayed on campus. And after that, I eventually became president of that organization, that first year experience organization. And I brought more people of color into that organization because as we grew as an institution, bringing more people of color into the organization or into the institution, I felt we have to reflect on this back end what we're seeing in our community. So I just wanted to change that system. And since then, I've just been all about system change, supporting Black and brown people, but supporting people in general, but particularly Black and brown people.
Okay. So as you describe that process, I think of a whole host of things that are very relevant and very centered in the mental health needs of young people of color. One, we don't talk about it a lot, I'm just going to mention it, is the process of, then I'm going to ask you about something else, but I just want to mention it because I want to acknowledge it. Okay. The process of deciding to go into spaces, whoever makes that decision, where there are people who don't look like us. We're both Black women, so people who are not watching, they're listening. You know, you've been very clear about, you know, your identity as a Black woman. I'm a Black woman as well. And we're both Black women where there's really not a question that we're Black women. So visibly, we present as Black people. And sometimes I wonder, so the question really is about, what is it like to be a person in those kinds of spaces as a young person? And what is the arc that you think can move a young person from being in that space and seeing that there's a need? And as you were talking, I started thinking of activists, moving into that space of becoming an activist. So it's sort of like one of the things, I have a mentor, he passed away recently, back last August. His name was Dr. Carl Bell. And what Dr. Bell used to talk about is, for many, he was very passionate about Black people specifically. He was a community psychiatrist. And he used to say that Black people and other people in marginalized communities often have an amazing ability to turn learned hopelessness, right? Which can turn into, right, if you just beat down enough, into learned helpfulness.
Yes.
So you take a situation that's difficult and you create, as you just articulated so well, you create space so that other people don't have to go through the struggle that you went through.
Right.
So I'm wondering for you, what was that like to go from sitting in that first year experience at your institution, feeling very isolated and alone, to deciding and going up that arc to leading it and bringing in other people? What was that like for you?
It was challenging, but I tipped my hat off to my mother.
Okay.
She knew that she wanted to put me in predominantly white institutions.
Okay.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
She said, this is the world that we live in. You need to get to know how to move in these systems so that you can be successful.
Okay.
So I'm fortunate forever.
Yeah.
I'm grateful forever for my mother.
Yeah.
Because it taught me a level of resilience that I probably wouldn't have learned until I got to that college setting where, unless I went to an HBCU.
Right.
But I didn't. So until I got to that college setting, I probably would have never learned that level of resilience and grit.
Yeah.
I always say that Black people in this country, our ancestors are slaves.
Yeah.
We've had no choice but to take that moment of hopelessness.
Yeah.
And make it into hopefulness.
Yeah.
So I think it's just something that's in our genes that we just have never gotten rid of. I don't know what is that protective factor in our community, but there's something there that's helping us transform hopelessness to hopefulness. But when I was that freshman in college, I just said, I'm not doing this, and no one else is going to do it either. It was that resiliency that had been in me, and it was a shock to my system, and I was actively rejecting this new environment until my mother, who knew me very well, said, my child is not going to stay until I take something from her, and that was that car. So grateful, like I said, but I had to remember that I was a resilient person, and I had to remember that if I don't do this right, then it may not get done at all.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't have faith in the institution that I went to.
Yeah.
But if I was there and I had the power to do it, why not?
Yeah.
And I felt like I was something that they needed. I didn't see me in them, in that organization. So I used that to my benefit. I said, you need me. And frankly, I need you, but I think you need me a little bit more. Because as you keep bringing in people who look like me, they're going to need something to relate to. And that something, that someone is me and other people who look like me.
Oh, I love that. So you took your own personal skill set, you took let's call it an opportunity that your mom gave you,
Yes,
right? It's like a forced opportunity. You were like voluntold to go do something.
Voluntold,
Yeah. You took that and you turned it into something that not only benefited you, but could benefit other people.
Right.
Do you think that, I think I know the answer to this, but I feel like it's important to name it. Do you think that there was something that you already possessed inside of you that gave you the emotional sort of fortitude to make that decision and then follow through with it? And the reason I ask is this. I see a lot of young people, and you work with a lot of young people yourself, where I hear this so often. If I don't do it, who's going to do it? Whatever that it is. And what I wonder about is it okay? And I want you to educate me on this, because I'm Gen X. So I want to hear from a millennial and a younger person's perspective. Is it okay for you to be the person, I'm thinking you personally, Jessica, but like a larger you of young people, thinking mostly about college and high school kids, is it okay for you to be the person who goes and does that thing that needs to be done, number one? And then number two, what tools emotionally do you need to be able to be successful? What do you think?
I think it's okay. To answer your first question.
Yes.
I think it's okay to be that person that goes into that system to make the change.
Okay.
A lot of people feel, depending on the system, a lot of people feel it's not our responsibility to teach someone how to change a system. And to an extent, I agree. It's not our responsibility. But given that, would there be this change that we've seen over the course of these generations and years if we didn't step into these systems to start the conversation and then to make those changes?
Got it.
So while it isn't our responsibility, it also is. Because if we weren't the ones that, I was like, we really, they picked us up by their bootstraps, but we weren't really giving any.
We had no boots.
Right.
No boots that had no straps on.
Right. But, if we weren't the ones to, pick ourselves up and do those things, I'm not sure I'm not saying it wouldn't have been done, but I don't know how far we would have come.
Got it.
Regarding your second question with the life skills.
Yes.
I have an unpopular opinion that everyone has the skill set.
Got it.
It's just whether or not you know how to use those skills, whether you fine tune those skills. It is no different than you have a bike and you have to learn how to ride it. You have a skill, you have to learn how to use it.
Got it.
And you have to learn how to use it for good. Because you can definitely take those skills and use them for something completely opposite. But some of those skills that I feel that you need is definitely resilience. You need that bounce back factor.
Okay.
Bad things are going to happen. Unfortunate things are going to happen. It's just, what have you learned from those experiences? And I'm also a huge advocate for, say something happened. I don't need to take the whole experience and take it with me and learn from it. I can take a little bitty piece of that experience, one that I know is going to help me make go or move into a better position or make me a better person. I don't have to take every part of an experience. That's my choice, and it's everyone's choice. So the resiliency, that bounce back factor, looking at experiences and knowing how to, I guess it's discernment, just kind of knowing how to take certain aspects of a life experience and use it in a way that's going to benefit you as you move forward and as you grow. I think it takes a certain level of forgiveness and forgiving yourself for the mistakes that you make, not just others. I think you should always forgive others. But I think we forget to forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we made and stop being so dang hard on ourselves because we're human. And I think we have kind of grown into this culture of not forgiving people.
Yes.
We make a mistake.
Cancel culture.
The cancel culture. We make a mistake and it's like you're done. You can't erase people. You know, as much as you want to, they're still there. They're still human, and we all make mistakes. So I think if you learn how to forgive yourself, you'll better understand how to forgive other people and what that forgiveness looks like. So it's just a few of the skills that I feel that you would need to kind of get, because I did beat myself up a little bit that knowing better, I didn't do better when I got to college. But I just like, I'm a kid. You know, I'm still learning. And I hadn't even turned 18 yet when I got to college. So I was just like, this is okay. You know, I wish I would have told myself it was okay then. Yeah. But now I'm in the art of constantly forgiving myself and remembering that I'm just human.
Oh, I love that. So resilience, discernment, and forgiveness.
Yes.
Are skills that our young people and not so young people need to help them through these processes of sort of being activists and seeing a need and fulfilling it, particularly people coming from marginalized populations.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes. I love that. I love that. So if we pivot just a little bit to the kind of work that you've been involved in, say, the last 4 or 5 years, is it fair to say that that's all sort of in this space of mental health for young people?
I was in charge of building pipeline programs from the university through up into the FQHCs. So that way they had people who were devoted to that cause that not only would go and work for the FQHC, but would stay there.
So for my audience, because a lot of people may not know, we know that term. Everything you're saying, I know all of that.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
No, you're fine, because I used to be a mental health services. I still am, but my primary work was mental health services research. And so I know all the alphabet soup, I got it. Some of my audience, you did say you started very clearly federally qualified health centers, FQHCs.
Yes.
But what are pipeline programs?
So pipeline programs is exactly what you think. So imagine that I'm in high school.
Okay.
And maybe I go to a vocational high school, just as an example.
Yes.
It's an easy example.
Yes.
And in vocational high schools, you can pick and choose your career path.
Yes.
So say I want to go into nursing.
Okay.
So that's my vocation in my high school.
Okay.
And then you have, so you're in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're in the vocation nursing program, right?
Yes.
I am Jessica. I am me.
Okay.
And I'm coming in and I'm talking to you about how this college has a great nursing program.
Got it.
And this college's nursing program works closely with this federally qualified health center.
Got it.
So that is a pipeline. So it's like literally a line.
Yes.
That I can just walk down
yes.
to get to this destination.
Got it.
So I built those programs, but starting at the college level.
Okay.
So whether that's working with Charles Drew University, USC, UCLA, a lot of the other UC schools, and helping them understand why it's so important to work for a federally qualified health center. I did talk with a lot of people of color, just because it's always nice when I'm going to get health care and having someone who understands my lived experience, understands that I may not have the most trust in the healthcare system, and with reason. So I did a lot of that. I was always working with the schools and the community and the health centers to make sure that we had systems in place to make sure that as a citizen going in to get care, that they had someone to give them care.
The other thing that you were doing, I know you know this, but I feel like it's important. I know it's important to say it. Is you were creating lifetime opportunities for these young people.
I would hope so.
Yes. It makes me smile, even though that's not what you do anymore. But the idea that you can show a young person, presenting the way that you present, and you can say, look, there's a path for you to go do this thing that you want to do. Right? And there's a job waiting for you.
Yes.
I just need you to get through this other stuff over here. And then on the other side, there's a job. And not only that, but there's an expectation.
Right.
That once you get this job, you're going to pour back into the community that helped you go along that path.
Yes.
So it's cyclical,
Yes.
right? And that just makes me really happy to hear that there are people who care about our young people like that, right? That they will give them those kind of opportunities and show them that they have agency, right? It's not just we're going to pour this stuff into you. Not only are we going to pour it into you, but the expectation is that when you get to your destination, you're going to pour back into somebody else.
Yes.
And how empowering that can be for a young person, just to know that they have value, just like you did when you were at St. Louis University. You had a mom who was like, I'm going to make sure that you have experiences to help you understand what kind of grit you have, what kind of resilience you have. My brother he's in a fraternity, and they always talk about intestinal fortitude, but really that's what it is, the intestinal fortitude that you have to see a need, to set a goal and achieve the goal. And everything about that I really just love. So you went, maybe it wasn't a direct line, but sometime after you did that work, you moved more into the mental health space?
Yes.
Okay.
It actually was directly after.
Okay.
I knew I was going to be transitioning back to New York.
Okay.
So I started looking.
Okay.
I like to say we both found each other, the organization that I work for.
Yes.
But I saw an opportunity.
Yes.
I saw that, okay, well, I can be of some assistance in this field. And while I don't have... Behavioral science is all about looking at how people, how their behaviors impact their health.
Yes.
So I don't need to be a mental health clinician in order to know how those systems work, how behavior impacts various things in your life.
You're probably better off not being one because it gives you insight, right? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it was one of those decisions that I had to make because I thought I would be using my public health degree in a different way, not in a better way, but just a different way. And I really felt like I would be giving my sister back some of those opportunities that she didn't necessarily get. So I thought, this is an organization that's devoted to teens and young adults. Here I am. I got that opportunity to work for them, and it's been really great so far. And I mean, I see so many things, and I get so many questions when I go into high schools, and I don't often get the opportunity to go out and speak at the high school with teens and young adults. But when I do, it's an interesting experience. It's a great experience. But some of the questions that I get asked, they're a little everywhere. Yeah, but they're good questions. Yes, they're very good questions.
Yeah, and these kids are teenagers, because I have two, and they would be horrified if I say kids. But these teenagers, these young people are dealing with some stuff.
They're dealing with a lot. I can't imagine growing up with social media everywhere. You can't. Right. Well, you could turn it off.
You can.
Something keeps it there.
Yes, it's hard to avoid. They say they have whole systems. I was watching some documentary, but they have whole systems in place to keep it there.
Yeah.
Right in front of you, like, that sort of encourage you to keep it in front of you. So I've resorted to this little trick. I read it somewhere. It was a trick for parents to get their kids to do it so that they would stop doing the pickups, and that's to turn the color filter off, so that your screen is not in color. So I have mine set up. Yes. Okay. So I have mine set. I can just tap the, I have an iPhone. I can tap the power button 3 times, and a little pop-up comes up, and it's a color filter. And I just tap it, and my screen turns black and white. And I swear to you, it really helps reduce the number of pickups.
So you have to show me that one.
I will absolutely show you that. And I'm telling parents, you got to try it. Any adult, you have got to try it, because if you want to reduce it, because it makes it less attractive.
Yes.
The picture and the colors and the, you know what I mean? All that stuff flashing at you makes you want to pick it up. But if it's black and white, you don't even pay no attention. It's like a nuisance. It's just sort of like out of sight, out of mind. So I want to thank you, Jessica, for your openness, for the passion that you have for young people.
Thank you.
That story about the workforce development and the pipeline, and just, that's going to stay. For some reason, that just stands out to me, and it's just really important, really valuable work, and that I'm sure you're proud of, and that you should be proud of. And I really value you being willing to talk about what your experience was as a younger, because you're still a young person to me, but as a younger person, you grown, I know you grown, but as a younger person and what it was like to be in an environment where there are very few people who look like you. I think a lot of my listeners who are young adults or in college or even in high school need to hear that there are other people who've gone through that experience, and they need to hear what some of the tools are, as you said, the forgiveness, the resilience, and the discernment, that those are things that they're going to have to cultivate to be able to survive in those environments, right? And that it's really important to figure out a way to give back. So with that, I want to, again, like I said, say thank you. And then the final thing I do with all of my guests is I have these little cards.
Oh, goodness, okay.
Affirmator cards that I got from Ada. So I'm going to own that. Ada told me about them, and I was like, I love them. So these affirmator cards, let me take out the two. There's sort of two that are generic. Yeah, I think it's that one. Read it out loud if you don't mind.
Okay.
And then if you have any thoughts or reflections on it, please reflect for us.
Okay. Ooh. Follow my first mind. Okay, I'm going to follow my first
There you go.
mind.
Girl, did your family say that to you?
Yes.
Girl, my grandma taught me that. Follow your first, like literally those words. Follow your first
questions
mind.
I got wrong on the test because I wasn't following my first mind? I refuse anymore.
I love it.
Outlets. Okay. What's this? It says gasp. Okay. A remedy for the daily grind. That's right. Here's the boost you need to experiment with some new pastimes and hobbies. Work can feel uncreative sometimes, or not aligned with who you are, or completely and utterly devoid of any sort of meaning or value or shred of humanity. But don't despair. You have the ability to express yourself in other ways, and life is full of meaningful endeavors. There's no need to change your life to a boring job when there are gardens to grow, baseballs to throw, and pudding-based performance art installations to show. Get out there. Okay. So my reflection?
Yes.
Outlets. I think so often that we are shown what we should be doing outside of work or even with work. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to take that step into this weird or strange or just uncharted territory. I think it's really important to discover yourself in other ways that you've always wanted, regardless of how other people may view it, what they have to say about it. And you don't live your life to make other people happy.
Amen.
Do what you enjoy and have fun with whatever outlet you decide to go forward with.
Oh, I love that. That is, I'm not even going to try to restate it. That's a word for the young people and the not so young people. And so, Miss Jessica Orenstein.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
It's just been a gift. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there you have it. A little bit of education, a lot of insight, some personal stories related to this idea of security. How do we build it for our young people? How do we support them by creating secure environments? How do we infuse this idea of security into almost the DNA of our young people? We've learned a lot from our guests, and it was really exciting to bring this episode to you. In closing, let me just say I'm really grateful to my guests for sharing their insights and wisdom. So what we'd like you to do is to follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Couched in Color, as well as me, Dr. Alfiee, and please find us wherever you get your podcast fix. Don't forget to drop a note in the comments whenever you can, and we're really looking forward to catching up with you next time on Couched in Color. So as I always say in closing, let me wish you lots of love and light, and I'm always hoping that it's always informed by good, culturally relevant science. Take care.